And welcome to Tales from the Tips. If you're catching us on YouTube, make sure you give us a like and hit that subscribe button. Drop us a comment. Leave us a little note. Tell us how we're doing. You can find Tales from the Tips where you find your favorite podcast, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and of course, on the Odyssey app. Just download Tales from the Tips, subscribe, and enjoy. I'm DA. Normally I say alongside 15-year tour caddy Mick Middlemo, but Mick's still in Australia. I've got a very special guest joining me today. He is an 8-time PGA Tour winner, a champion on the Champions Tour, and the 2009 Open champion, the champion golfer of the year, Mr. Stewart Cink. I hope you enjoyed this interview and this conversation I had with Stewart. So with that, let's grip it and rip it. Well, I'm joined today by Stewart Cink. And the reason we're here today is you are the 2025 host of the Mitsubishi Electric Classic. What does it mean to be the host of a tournament like that?
Well, there's only, out of about 26 or 27 tournaments on the calendar, there's only a handful, maybe like 3 or 4 that have a host.
Okay.
And on the PGA Tour, you know the ones that have the host. It's the Memorial,
Yep.
Jack Nicklaus. It's the Arnold Palmer Invitational hosted by, can you guess?
Well, it was by Arnie.
Arnie.
Yeah.
So, and now Tiger Woods hosts the one at Riviera.
Yep.
There's a few that, and on the Champions Tour, I think it mirrors that. It's Steve Stricker hosts the one in Madison, his hometown.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry Kelly hosts the one in Tucson, which is not his hometown, but it's his sponsor that does the tournament, Cologuard.
Okay.
And Jim Furyk host the one in Jacksonville, the Furyk and Friends. So when as I got closer to 50 and being, basically rooted in the community up there in Gwinnett County, just outside Atlanta here, TPC at Sugarloaf, that was where I lived for over 20 years. Well, approaching 50, it kind of made sense that I would sort of like move into a host role at that tournament. And so that's what's happened. I'm 51 now, so this is my second year in this role.
What are some of the responsibilities as a host? I mean, I know most of us see the names. What is tournament week and also the lead up like for you as the host?
It's not that much. I'm semi-involved with the operational things, and my main focus is I want to make the player experience the best it can be. The golf course staff, they already make the course amazing.
Yeah.
Like it's one of the best conditioned and really one of the best courses on tour already. So don't have a lot to do with that. But just the player experience. I've played in so many tournaments and I've seen what works and what hasn't worked.
Mm-hmm.
Some things are personal where, maybe I don't love the way that we pick up players from the airport or something like that.
Sure.
And other players find that to be the most convenient way. So I got to talk to players and find out, like, what do you expect? What do you want? How does it differ from what my personal experience has been? And just try to, like, please as many people as you can. And in the end, it's all about getting the field strength up. Yeah. And so we want all the best players to come and play here for our fans. We love the fans. We love the PGA Tour champions. And I say we, meaning my wife and I. Our foundation is a beneficiary of the tournament. So we just want to grow the tournament in the community. We want the player experience to be as good as it can be. If I can help get some sponsorships and renewals across the finish line without fumbling, I try, but that's not my expertise. But that's really what it's all about, just trying to make the tournament as good as it can be for fans, players, caddies, and sponsors, and grow the whole thing up.
Well, Mick will appreciate that you're taking care of the caddies. Stephen Ames is clearly comfortable with the golf course, 3-time winner. What is the importance? I know you mentioned that you and Lisa, your charity. What is the importance of having a tour event like the Champions Tour in Duluth? What is the importance of it for you? And also, what are some of the things that you can do then through the charitable giving that the tour gives back to you guys?
Well, a lot of people don't know this, but all events, and I probably shouldn't say all. It's such a harsh word.
Yeah.
But I can comfortably say all of our tournaments are charitably based nonprofit 501c3 organizations. Yeah. And what that means, in like real world terms is the tournaments make money. They make money on concession sales, merchandise, ticket, sponsorships. Yeah. And they spend money on operational structure setups, you know, the things that cost money to do, providing food and beverage, all that. But hopefully, and all the tournaments have a surplus, and that surplus, after we pay the staff and everything to run the tournament, goes to charity. And that's how we zero everything out. And that clear that goes to charity is where Cink Charities, our foundation, and Special Needs Schools of Gwinnett, we split it. And that's kind of how the operational, you know, the revenue model works. So at the end of the tournament, after all the beans are counted and the dust settles and everything, you know, we get half, and they get half. And it just enables us to support the charities that are close to our heart, that have been sort of our focus for, you know, really since we became adults. Actually, we're still trying to become adults.
Yes.
So in the event that ever happens, we're going to be able to say we're adults, and we'll say that we've supported these charities really ever since we started our family.
I feel really good that you just said that, because my wife claims that I'm the fourth child. And at 50 now, I'm like, man, I'm still in that category. I'm like, I feel like I'm winning still at that point.
Yeah, well, I mean, you probably can feel the same way. I've seen some of my friends become adults.
Yes.
It doesn't look like it would suit me.
No.
So I'm actually trying to push it off as much as possible and still remain a kid.
Mick and I were talking about it. He goes, if you had to pick JT or Rory, who would you want to hang out with? And I said, ideally, I'd love to hang out with Rory, just because we probably have a very similar background and more of like type of things now where we're at in our stages of life. I go, but JT hasn't missed a party that I don't think he's wanted to miss. And I go, and he seems like a lot of fun to hang out with. So, yeah, we're kind of in the same, like in that vein. As I get older, though, it's not as easy to do as much as I used to do. So
True.
I got to ask, so going into, obviously, you mentioned you've lived out at TPC Sugarloaf. What are some of the strategies that you're planning on taking into the course? Obviously, you have a lot of knowledge of that course.
Yeah.
What are some of the strategies, if you can, share that you're taking into this week?
Well, when you play a course a lot, it's not always the same as when you're playing a tournament at a course.
Sure.
You know, when you're playing with your buddies or when you're playing in the Saturday game or whatever out there, you know, it's kind of about like, how many birdies can I make? And if I put a 6 or a 7 on the scorecard, who cares?
Right.
That's not really the way it is in tournament golf. So there are some different approaches. There's a couple places where I will, you know, hit to a section of the fairway off the tee as opposed to just sending a driver as far as I can hit it. And that's just, you know, you play by percentages every day, but when we're just trying to make as many birdies as we can make, it doesn't always translate into the best score you can make over the long run.
Sure.
And so I'll approach it more like I would approach any other tournament venue. You know, I do know a lot more about the greens than most courses, and I've putted from almost everywhere on those greens, so I've got a lot of, you know, I'm not saying I won't misread putts, but I do tend to have some knowledge. My son's caddying, who plays there more than I do, so we have a good...
That's a good 1-2 combo there.
Yeah, we got a good, you know, a log of memories about the golf course, and so... But when they set it up for tournament play, you know, the greens are fast. The fairways, I even noticed yesterday playing in the Pro-Am that the fairways are already kind of cut down that little extra, so the ball tends to wander down into the, you know,
those little swales.
It runs, and so it'll roll farther off the green if you miss.
Yep.
So there's just a little bit of different playing in a tournament than there is playing like on a day-to-day basis out there.
Okay, so I've played TPC Sugarloaf a couple times through partnerships. Those greens are fast normally. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much faster are they tournament play versus just your regular round during the summer?
They keep them pretty fast out there, so it's not a lot.
Okay.
I would say it's about the same as the fastest they ever are for member play.
Okay.
It's about the same.
Got it.
You know, you can get the greens too fast, and then you end up with sort of a mockery of competition. So one of the most amazing things about Augusta National to me is that the greens are just incredibly fast, and there's never a bad hole location. They never lose control of it, and it's incredibly fast.
Yeah.
And not flat.
No,
but they put the holes in the exact right places, and they make it work. And there have been times when courses get a little too fast and the hole locations get a little bit questionable, but the staff out on the PGA Tour champion staff and the PGA Tour staff both do an amazing job with keeping that fine line between like making it super challenging and also fair. And that's one of the great things about playing pro golf at the highest level is that you get challenged, but you don't really ever get kicked in the teeth by a setup that's like a mistake.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
Well, you've played in a couple of U.S. Opens that I know those are the ones that come to the top of my mind. The superintendent, they lost the golf course. And typically it's because of weather. You know, drying out and not watering enough, and obviously
it happens. I mean, it does happen, and it happens at the U.S. Open, sadly, a little bit more than it happens other places. They do push the course a little bit more, and then they're probably a little bit more aggressive with some of the hole locations because they want it to be hard, and that's okay. But they, in the past, I mean, we remember, the Shinnecock a couple times, but those kind of courses, that up in that part of the world, like that turf is a lot like the turf in the British Isles where they play the British Open.
Yeah.
But at the Open Championship, they don't ever let the greens get very fast because they know there's going to be wind. They know there's going to be, there's slopes and subtle breaks all over the place. So the greens they're the slowest of the year by far. Yeah. But in Shinnecock and places out in Long Island, there's only a very few places in the U.S. that are like that, but Shinnecock is one of them. You've got everything that the links courses have, except they also make the greens fast. Yeah. And so it's just a delicate balancing act.
It's you ride that fine line.
You ride the fine line, and sometimes you go across it and you end up with balls that are rolling off the greens, and sometimes you end up with players hitting moving balls because we remember.
Oh yeah,
all that happening.
Well, but and I think the other side of it is how well the staff did at Pinehurst last year, because that course can be traditionally extremely tough and fast. Yeah. And with all the runoffs, Donald Ross design, those typical designs like that, they just run off and you lose a ball real fast. And you know more than I do. I'm just like I say on the podcast, I'm just a bad amateur golfer, though I can hold my own out on the course. It's those are the things, though, as a golfer, you want to test. You want to be able to shape shots, but when you should be rewarded by hitting a good shot. Yeah. So I got to ask, how did you ever get into whatever got you into golf? How did you get into golf, and what made you all of a sudden one day say, "Yeah, I'm going to be a PGA Tour pro, not a PGA professional Tour pro"? Where did it start?
Well, I never really said one day I'm going to be a PGA Tour pro. Yeah. That was one of the things about me growing up, is that I just never was like looking out into the, to the horizon thinking like I'm bound for the PGA Tour. That's just not the way I grew up thinking, or I wasn't told that either. Yeah. So the way I got started into golf was just before I was born. My parents had been married for about 4 years, and my dad had started playing golf, so he would have something to do with his father-in-law, my granddad. Okay. And so my dad started playing, and then my mom started playing a little bit. So in a way, when I was born, we were all beginners at the same time. Like I had a club when I was a little kid, a left-handed 6-iron. Okay. A lefty. And so we were all hitting the ball. They had started, but we all were basically beginners by the time I was old enough to walk and take a swat at the ball. We were kind of in the same boat, so we all kind of, just did this,
grew up together with it.
Yeah, and the way it just worked out naturally, my dad was kind of my teacher in a way. Like he would he would take the Hogan book or the Nicklaus book and sort of like fundamentals me. Okay. Like grip, stance, practice drills, stuff like that. Yeah. Not from a pro's perspective, but just because he read in Jack's book or in Hogan's book. Yeah. And my mom was way less about technique, but more about just like the spirit of honoring the game and loving the game, and just the sort of intangible like etiquette of golf and stuff like that. Yeah. I learned how to love it from my mom. Yeah. I learned how to do it from my dad. Got it. And by the time I was, 6, 7, 8 years old, I was like, we were all beginners, but I was a little bit like this.
You just took off. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's how I got started, though. Okay. And then there were some other kids that were little, that were my age, at our course growing up in Alabama. I couldn't go on the golf course till I was 8. And there was a couple other kids about my age that also couldn't go on the course. And so we just hung around the practice green. Putting contests. Yeah. If the weather was bad, didn't matter. You could still use the putting green if it wasn't lightning and thunder. And so we just had putting contests all over the place, chipping. There was no range or anything. We didn't have a range. So we just learned how to putt and get up and down. Yeah. And so by the time we were old enough to go on the course, we really didn't know how to hit it that great. But as soon as we got within 50 yards, up and down.
Yeah.
Like, it was good.
Yeah.
And it was a good way to learn how to play golf.
So this
from the whole back.
This has really been a family affair for you all the way through. I mean, you mentioned Reagan's going to caddy for you this weekend.
Yeah.
This has been a true family affair, and you've kept it that way.
Yeah, it's been a family affair. It started off as sort of an activity, and then it was competitive when I got old enough to start entering tournaments when I was like 8, 9, 10. And then I didn't ever see myself as like superstar. I still don't see myself like that. I still, like, I joke with people, and my wife eye rolls, but one of the ways I still approach the game is like, I hope one day I can be successful at golf.
Yeah.
Because golf is just not something you ever master. I just hope one day I can be there. So it still kind of pulls me out of bed to go practice every day, and I still love doing it.
Yeah.
But it went from activity to, when you get into college, I went to Georgia Tech right here where we are, and it kind of becomes a profession because it's now meaning a little bit more to you than just like winning trophies and stuff. It's your own scholarship, and it means more. And then you get out into the pros, and you don't ever know if you're going to make it. But it's kind of gone from activity to sort of like, it means a lot in our family because it's just woven into so much of our family fabric now.
Yeah, yeah. And so obviously, and I will say it, successful career, 8-time PGA Tour winner.
Well, you can say it.
I'll say it.
I made a bogey yesterday afternoon, so I'm not there.
You're not there. Got it. Champions Tour winner at one of my favorite courses, Warwick Hills up in Grand Blanc.
Yeah.
And the 2009 Champion Golfer of the Year at Turnberry.
Yeah.
Out of all those, and I'm gonna say leave the major out of it. Which one was the most important? Which one is the most significant, and which one was there something specific about that win that kind of makes you go, yeah, this was special?
Well, I would say the most enjoyable ones were the ones where I had some kind of family connection. Like when my son Reagan, that's our younger son, and we have an older one, Connor. They're 31 and 28. When Reagan caddied for me for a couple years, it only started out as one tournament.
Yeah.
And the way that it went was I was coming back from an injury and COVID.
Okay.
So, okay, let me rephrase that. I wasn't coming back from COVID.
Right.
The world of sports was coming back from COVID.
Correct.
And I was in an injury as we went into COVID. So I was kind of like, I had a little bit of a longer extension of my lockdown than most people. So as we came out of COVID, I was working my way up through the policies on the PGA Tour on like how to, you got to matriculate your way back up.
Sure.
It's complicated, but I was in that. And the first tournament in the 2020 season, which used to be a wraparound season, you started in the fall and you played all the way through the summer.
By the way, Mick hates it, just so you know, because he thinks it helped ruin some of the other tours across the world. But
okay.
Just letting you know where he stands on that one.
So he's probably happy that we don't do that anymore.
He is.
But we did it for about 10 years.
He is, yeah.
So the first tournament in 2020 in September was in Napa, and I was borderline whether I was going to get in the field or not. And my caddy at the time was calling out, hey, it's expensive. Do I need to book a place? And I'm a little hesitant, and I was like, oh, I don't know what to say. And my son was he was waiting for his job to pick back up with Delta Airlines because of COVID. And so he was hearing me talk to my caddy, and he just kind of hesitated. Hey, if it helps, I'll caddy.
Yeah.
I'll stay with you, and I'll caddy.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, dang, that sounds awesome. And he had caddied before, but he had only caddied like as a teenager. He was still kind of kid caddy.
Yeah.
So I thought that sounded great, and I told my caddy, don't worry about it. You don't have to. Reagan's going to take over for this week, and you don't have to worry about eating all this money if I don't get in or whatever. So it's hard being the caddies out there. I mean, it's hard.
Yeah.
So Reagan caddies, and we win first tournament.
Okay.
So we won, and it was awesome. And this is kind of going back to answer your question about which one had the most meaning. That one probably had the most because Reagan's caddying. It had been the first tournament that I won since the 2009 Open, and it was 2020, so 11 years. since I won. And just that enjoyment and the validation of I was 46. I was 47.
Yeah.
I was 47.
It catches up, doesn't it?
So 47 years old, and in 11 years after my last win at the Open Championship. So that one probably was the most gratifying one because of all those things. And so, I mean, but it's hard to discount your first win too. You know,
sure.
Immediately, you know, in my rookie season, I'm like, I get a win, and I belong.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot to choose from. Luckily, very fortunate for me. But also, you know, going back to the Korn Ferry Tour, which was the Nike Tour when I played on it, but winning 3 tournaments in 1996, and you know, kind of get myself, you know, a straight shot to the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
In '97.
Yeah,
I mean, big too.
You do have 17 professional tour wins, or wins in general.
Yeah,
so when I was doing the research, and Mick teases me that I do too much research, but I'm like, I've seen your career. I've followed your career all the way through. I was like you know, we're right there at the same age. I remember going through all of it. You know, I tell on this podcast, I literally took a VCR tape, and I would tape Freddie Couples and Ernie Els, and then play them back and watch their swings, and then go to the range and try to emulate and copy them. We didn't have YouTube and all the other stuff at that time. It's fun to watch it, but I do remember kind of growing up, you know, Nike Tour. I had a buddy of mine that we played against in high school. He ended up going out on the Hooters Tour, and then got a special exemption to play Warwick one year and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Reagan's been on the bag for a couple wins then recently, and obviously this is kind of it's kind of fun to talk about it because JT just had his first win. His baby daughter is there, his brand new wife, his dad, and then as I was doing it, I was like, 2021, you guys won the RBC Heritage, you and Reagan on the bag.
Yeah.
And then, but you and Lisa has caddied for you as well.
Yeah. Reagan, you know, it only started as a 1-week deal.
Yeah.
And we won. So obviously, you know, we kind of said, well, let's keep it running.
Sure.
And we went to the next tournament, and I said, you know what, if I finish top 5, we'll keep it going again.
Yeah.
I didn't finish top 5. I finished 12th, which was still pretty good finish.
That's pretty good finish on the tour.
And so we were just doing great out there. I mean, he and I've played so many rounds together, and when we play golf together, we are basically caddying for each other. Like, we're discussing my shots, we're discussing his shots, we're making decisions as a team. So all we did was just transfer that onto the competitive golf course.
Yeah.
The next term would go 4th.
Okay.
And at this point now, I'm calling my caddy and saying, I got some news for you. You're not going to like it.
Yeah.
And so Reagan, we decided that he would go up through the Masters because, you know, I got into the Masters for winning. And his job had kind of given him sort of the green light to start back working, and it put us in this position where we're like, work or keep caddying. You know, you're starting your career. He works for Delta Airlines.
Yeah.
And so I called some people that I trust their judgment on. Some people that work for Delta, and some others that don't, and just said, like, what do you think? Like, what would you do? And every single person I talked to said, you know, Reagan's gonna have a long career with Delta, and this window is not that long. Definitely take advantage of this.
Yeah.
And so he caddied. He ended up caddying for 2 years. We got one more win.
Good.
That next April, RBC Heritage, got my 3rd win there with him, and you know, we had ups and downs. We had some great finishes and awesome times, and we had some really bad stretches too, just because it's the nature of the game. But I think maybe those bad stretches might have even been more valuable for a father-son relationship than the successes, because you know, you're in the middle of the heat, and you've got your direct offspring basically watching you to see how you react. Like, how do you handle adversity, Dad?
Yeah.
What can you ask for more than that?
Right.
You know, a way to teach your kid, you know, how to handle things. And sometimes I probably have failed miserably on how to teach him. But
I think all of us as parents have done that. But I know I kind of posed this question to you know, before we got started with Lisa. You know, obviously husband and wife, you have that communication bond. You know, I know we talk about it. I know when Lynn's texting me at a certain time or calling me at a certain time during the day that isn't normal. I know something's wrong. What was it like to have her on the bag then also? And then, and what was that relationship? How does that help strengthen the marriage and stuff like that? Or does it cause a little bit more chaos?
It caused a little chaos, but it solved a few problems too. In her caddying, she came in after Reagan, but I had another caddy, an Australian guy named Scott Sachinek, in between for about 6 months.
Okay.
And he was great too. But I was in a period of some struggle. I missed like 5 straight cuts, and I was just like, I couldn't find a solution, just not performing very well. And my wife said, hey, if you want to change things up at the next tournament, which was going to be RBC Heritage again, 2023, if you want to change things up, I'll caddy. It's a place we know. You know it so well. You don't really need a caddy there. I'll caddy. She doesn't know golf that well. So I was like, hey, that sounds fun, and so she caddied for that one tournament, and it kind of ended up being the end for me and Scott, because I don't think he really liked it very much, even though, I tried to do the right thing, and he didn't lose any income on the week.
Sure.
Mainly because I missed the cut, but I paid him for everything.
Yeah.
So I didn't pay Lisa, paid Scott instead, but anyway, Scott told me, yeah, man, I just don't think we're working out that great. And he kind of went looking for another bag.
Got it.
I don't blame him. I was like 48 years old, 49 years old, and I wasn't playing that great. So he wasn't going to hang around with me. And so Lisa, I was like, looks like you're caddying the next one too. She's like, I am? So it was funny the way it started out. Ended up being about, I think she caddied for 17 tournaments on the PGA Tour.
Okay.
And that spanned over about 10 months.
Yeah.
And so it was a little more stress for us, because it meant that she had to get ready to go to the golf course the same time I did, because she was now working and caddying and doing all the stuff caddies do. But it was also great for us because she had watched my career as a watcher. And at the end of the rounds, she would ask me questions about like what happened on the good holes and the bad holes, just to kind of get filled in. Well, when she caddied, she didn't have to ask anymore, because she knew what happened on every single shot. She knew the situation. She knew what the ball was sitting on. She knew the wind. She knew the hole locations. Yeah. She knows enough about golf to know like where the challenging shots are and where the easy ones are. And so it gave her an inside seat instead of an outside seat.
Yeah.
So for those 17 or so tournaments, I think she really enjoyed it.
Okay.
And she learned how to be a good caddy, and I think she would tell you that her favorite part about caddying was the caddies.
Yeah.
Because they were so welcoming to her.
Yeah.
The caddies were so great to her. I don't think they saw her as a threat. They didn't see me as somebody that everybody was seeking out that bag, and she was like getting in the way.
Yeah.
She was a sweetheart to them, and they really treated her very kindly and taught her a few things, little here and there, and she, by the end of her caddying time, she was like,
she was one of the guys.
Yeah, she was caddying. She was one of the guys. I mean, she wasn't doing yardages and reading greens that much.
Yeah.
But occasionally, if I would like stop to go to the restroom or get, a bottle of water, and she was a few steps ahead, she would have the yardage book out and have the steps off and say, all right, you're 176 to the front, 202 to the hole, and that's all I got for you. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But she was a good sport about it, and I had fun.
Well, then it helps you, again, bring it full circle back to the host part. That helps you guys know what to do for players and for the caddies when they get into town and stuff like that, because she knows exactly what they need, what their needs are, and obviously the player side.
Yeah.
So I'll ask you this one question: faith, family, and career. How have you been able to balance these together? I know how important faith is for you.
Mm-hmm.
How have you been able to do it, and what has made you so successful with it?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm successful with it, by the way. I don't think any of us are. But what I do know is that my career, just because it's a game where you have to depend on a little white ball and where it goes, does this, right? And so for me, I knew early on that it would be good for me to find something that goes like this, to balance out the ups and downs of the career. And so that's what faith really represents for me.
Yeah.
Is that I know that my faith is rooted in something that will never change.
Yeah.
And if my faith was rooted in something that drastically changes every day, like where my golf ball goes,
yeah,
then I would have probably already had a heart attack and passed away.
Yeah.
Because it's just not something that's dependable. It's not something you lean on. It's quicksand. And so I do a good job, as good as I can do, processing and preparing for each shot, and then letting it go as soon as I start my swing. That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's what I find to be when I can play my best. And my faith, because I know I have a constant that's in the background, enables me to do that a little bit more often.
Got it.
So that's the best way I know how to answer that.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of fitting. We're getting together the week right after Easter, so it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us on Tales from the Tips. Best of luck this week, and we look forward to seeing you out there. And you're welcome back anytime.
Okay, cool. Well, I live an entire block and a half from the studio.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
well, when Mick gets back, by the way, another Aussie, so he will be happy to hear that you had an Aussie on the back. He may try to solicit some work at some point. So, well, thanks for joining us. We hope your drives are straight, your putts are short, and your scores are low as we tee it up on Tales from the Tips. I really hope you enjoyed that conversation I had with Stewart Cink. Thanks for teeing up with us on Tales from the Tips. Remember to follow us on Instagram, X, TikTok, and of course on YouTube for all of our new content, shorts, and creative. Keep your drives straight, your putts short, and your scores low as we tee it up on Tales from the Tips. We'll see you next time.